Please stand by, your program is about to begin. Good day everyone and welcome to today's program titled Documenting Resident Violations in 2021. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. Later, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions during the question and answer session. Instructions on how to ask questions will follow at that time. As a reminder, this call is also being recorded and will be made available for purchase in electronic download format. Now, I would like to introduce your speaker for today, Paul Flockstead. Paul has been involved in the real estate industry for the past 38 years. He has been involved in sales, construction, project management, appraisal, property management, and property management consulting training. Through his consulting company, Property Management Solutions, he provides training and consulting services nationwide to owners, management companies, multi-housing association, as well as state and federal agencies. He specializes in fair housing issues and has developed fair housing and outreach programs for governmental agencies, as well as conducting seminars which are presented to property management companies, apartment associations, and the general public nationwide. Paul, welcome to the program. We are now ready to begin.
Very good. Thank you, Emma. Welcome, everybody. Well, today we're going to be talking about violations. Of course, your property always has perfect tenants and you never have any issues thereabouts. So we're going to talk about a few of those kind of things and just kind of see where we can help you out and give you some ideas on what to do. The rental lease violations happen every day, of course, and every landlord has had the misfortune of having a tenant break a stipulation in their lease agreement or something like that. And the difference between a good landlord and a bad one is the way the violations are handled. And ideally, every tenant comes your way will follow your lease to a T. But of course, there's always that tenant that doesn't quite follow everything that they should be. Knowledge is power, and it may very well be to protect you from liability. So we'll talk about the proper ways to deal with some of these lease violations. Before learning how to handle the violations, I first have to understand what constitutes a lease violation. Tenants who want to lease a particular property or unit must sign a lease agreement, and the agreement outlines the stipulations expected of that tenant, such as when they should pay their rent and rules and regulations and those type of things. And they should read this agreement prior to signing so they can negotiate any terms they dislike and get everything up front. A lease violation is simply a breach of contract. The tenant commits such an act, and whether they go against the stipulation outlined in the agreement, violations can happen when tenants take certain actions or fail to take certain actions, in the case of failure to pay the rent and deposits, those type of things. So rental lease agreement violations are not uncommon. Even the most responsible tenants might make a mistake every once in a while, and you as a landlord might be tempted to let small errors slide, provided your tenant does not make a habit of that type of situation. And eviction is not always the first answer to your problems, unless the tenant partakes in illegal activity. In fact, evicting your tenant for something as small as excessive noise would only cause more trouble for you down the line, more than it's worth sometimes. However, that does not mean you can let your tenants walk all over you, and you need to be in control. You're the owner, the manager, and you need to keep that control. The lease violations are serious. You might take the necessary steps to resolve them when they arise. And here are some of the most common violations that we're going to talk about today. First, we talked about the communications, how we're going to communicate to these tenants when they do constitute a violation. Try to meet with a resident in person before sending a written notice. Have another employee available to witness the conversation. Remain calm and state the facts. Never disclose the source of the complaint, and tie behavior to the lease. Only use email as for property business. Simply state things like the facts of the situation, or don't send personal information via email, such as social security numbers or anything like that. When you're going to post the notice, make sure that the residents' names are appearing on the notice as they are in the lease. The notice has to contain the owner or management company's contact information. Include the complete address, including the city, state, and the zip code, and physically sign and date the notice. Confirm the correct delivery service. Handed to a resident or occupant of the residence, posted in a conspicuous space, or sent via certified mail. Those are the ways that you would do that. If your notice has the time frame to comply, you generally cannot count the day of delivery or service. For example, if you've got 3 days to quit, you delivered on August 11th, your 3 days would end on midnight on August 14th, okay? Types of notices. You've got the violation letter, you've got cure or quit, demand for compliance or possession, substantial violations, notice to quit or repeated violation, or notice to pay or quit, demand for rent, 3-day or 10-day notice, however it works in your state. The Postal Service, if you send something by mail, copy the envelope before you send it. Keep a copy of the returned receipt with the original notice. Document certification numbers, and it's always a good idea to send certified return receipt requested instead of regular mail. So this way, then you get a copy back that they signed for it, so that they can't say they never got that. You've got their little green card saying, yes, they signed for that. So that's the best way to send it. It costs a little more, maybe $4 or $5 to send it that way, but it's worth it in the end. If you do any texting, always document the calls in writing. If the conversation was through text, note the date and time of the conversation. Email the conversation to yourself and use texting for only company business, and make sure that they have agreed to receive your text. Use yes to opt in and stop to opt out. Disclose that the carrier and data charges may apply, so you need to tell them that. Now, I have a list here of a couple free landlord forms. If you want letter templates for your various violations, here's 3 different places where you could go to get these free templates. And there's also, I included one that you can download from this website, from Compliance Prime here, of a very basic website as well, or form as well. You need to be concerned with fair housing. Being friends with residents can cost you money. The file must contain the same information for all violations and timeframes for every resident. Residents who are disabled may have the need for reasonable accommodation. You need to engage in an interactive dialogue, and do not use your own discretion when making the decisions. Treat every resident the same. One of my managers always, her mantra is friendly to all, but friends to none. And that kind of wraps that up a little bit there too. Documenting the resident file, of course, you want to complete and compile all of the information surrounding the complaint in chronological order. Be as detailed as possible. If a resident complains about another resident verbally, be sure to ask them to put it in writing. Send the resident who complained a letter requesting the complaint be put into writing, and or their willingness to go to do so, and ask if the complaint would be if they would be willing to testify in court if need be. Document who, what, where, and when, and how the situation occurred. Who are all of the persons involved? What happened? Where did the problem take place? When did the problem take place? And why did the situation occur? How did the problem start? Or how was the situation left? Police were called or whatever. Always keep in mind a complaint may go to court, so make sure you get enough documentation. Maybe you can take some pictures or get some witnesses, or make sure you have copies of all documents and notices. Always follow up with all the parties involved and place the following documentation in each file. So you should have file notes in good order in your file. Don't use little sticky notes or something like that. Type out and write good file notes for everything that you do. Now, what are some types of infractions we're going to be talking about? Of course, the one biggie is non-payment of rent. That's one of the most common problems is getting the rent paid. The turnover process can be exhausting, and finding suitable